Welcome to the Daily Thunder podcast. This is Cray. I'm hosting today and joined by our beat reporter, Brandon Rabar. Brandon, number one, how are you doing? And number two, have you signed any 10-day contracts lately with the Memphis Grizzlies by chance?
I'm doing well. I would be doing even better if I did get hit up by the Grizzlies. I appreciate the tweet that the Daily Thunder official Twitter account tweeted out, letting the Grizzlies know I was available. I put my video out there, like my, you know, I it was a shooting. You know, I don't want to call it I guess what do they call them? The off summer workout in the gym, like open gym.
Let's
They've
call it a
seen,
workout video.
yeah,
It's a
workout
bit,
video.
it's like, Ben Simmons.
Right. Yeah.
But I
Well,
would
don't
say
say Ben Simmons. We're still trying to get this contract, Craig. Don't put that out there.
he got plenty of contracts.
That's true.
He fooled plenty of people with his video work. I'm not saying you're fooling anyone. Your tape doesn't lie like his. His was like, here's one shot spliced together with three others. And
Right.
your shot, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if you counted, but you don't miss, right? Or
Yeah, I don't miss on it. It's 20 for 20,
okay.
and so I missed my 21st one, so I cut that out. I edited it, before I missed that 21st shot. So Grizzlies, if you're out there listening, I know that some people don't want to play in your city. I will happily accept a 10-day contract to play in your city.
I think they had 13 inactive recently,
Yeah, that's
so they're playing.
and they were still ahead at halftime against the Nuggets last night. That's wild.
Well, good on the 10-day guys. I did it. Someone pointed out, like, imagine you finally get your dream call up to the NBA and everyone's writing articles about how you're so bad and trash and the Grizzlies should be punished for playing you
Right.
because you finally get your chance to actually play in an NBA court and everyone's like, see, he's on the court. This is an outrage. But I'd still do it, that would happen with you, obviously. Okay, this is too far. You can't have the media play, but I think you'd probably take that hit.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll do Memphis. I'm a big fan of your barbecue. I'm a big fan of Graceland. I have a lot of respect for the grit and grind Grizzlies. So hit me up. I'll make sure that you go higher in those tanking standings. Don't worry about it.
There we go. And we know how it's done. We know how it's done. We've been very successful. So, all right. Well, we're going to do a quick, we're going to try to be quick because the regular season is not over, but for the Thunder, it's essentially over. So we're going to do a kind of quick recap of the regular season that has basically wrapped up in terms of the business that the Thunder need to take care of. And then we're just going to ask a few questions about what is still, what dominoes will still be falling for the rest of the 2-3 games for the rest of the league, what that will mean for the Thunder. And we will save our like real predictions and things for when the playoffs are actually kind of set in stone because we could guess all day long. And one thing I don't think we would be successful in is predicting, you know, 2 nights of NBA basketball, let alone where every single seed and lottery pick and all that stuff will end up. So we're going to try to be tangible and relevant for what we know as of now, getting ready to watch the rest of the season play out. So first, regular season, Thunder, another very easy win, this time with the second straight victory over a Los Angeles team in Los Angeles. They crushed Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers. With that win, they secured the number 1 overall seed for the duration of the playoffs. They will have home court advantage. They essentially, I think we can all say at this point, clinched Shai's second consecutive MVP trophy, if the voting goes as expected. They clinched, I believe, for the first time since last year, at least having some, I don't know if it's a super majority, but there's a growing consensus that yes, Shai is actually the best player, not just the I guess coincidental MVP candidate or MVP winner every single year. Has clinched. Shai may or may not play more or much more. He has essentially clinched the second most efficient 30 point per game season ever, just a hair behind Steph's most legendary season in 2015-16. Theoretically, he could move inch one way or another if he got a few more shots up, but that's probably where he'll be. They also clinched just a lot of kind of historic landmarks that come with being the number 1 seed for 3 straight seasons and all the winning they've done, and of course, for such a young, promising roster, that's very exciting. So, anything else on just the whole season, and your recap of the Clippers game went through a lot of this on just kind of these kind of historic milestones that we can kind of see in front of us now. Is there anything else about this season that you think is like, should receive top billing of what they accomplished in 2025-26?
I do agree. Shea kind of tilting the access of the general consensus believing that Nikola Jokic is just the no-brainer, best in the world is a big one because I think that Shea has been the best player in the world when you look at the last couple of seasons put together, and that is a growing feeling. Now, is that the consensus yet? Probably not, but now it's a conversation, and that is a big deal, and pretty incredible when you look at Shea's career trajectory and how he's gotten to this point. I think that the fact that the Thunder hit all these historic marks, first team since the Warriors of the 2010s and only the third team ever, including the MJ Pippen these Bulls, to have back-to-back 64 plus win seasons is just remarkable. To have 2 seasons of success like that back to back is incredible. And given the context of how many injuries the Thunder had to the top 8, 9 guys in the lineup. Really, it's throughout the roster. Cason Wallace is really the only guy that hasn't missed serious time this season that's been a regular rotation guy. It's pretty remarkable. Everybody else has pretty much missed double digits, and then you get to J-Dub, who's missed over half the season. You get to Hartenstein, who's missed, like, over 30 games, Caruso and AJ Mitchell over 20 games. When you start stacking up these injuries and look at the season and what the Thunder accomplished, to go wire to wire as the number 1 seed in the West is remarkable, especially given all these injuries. And, coming off a championship season, all these expectations, 68 wins, a championship, this team was going to get better because of internal development, and you still hit the over on the over-under on projected wins despite all these injuries. That is, to me, pretty incredible.
Absolutely, and I'm gonna throw in another injury that I think is very underrated at this point, in addition to the piling up of games missed by very important players. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander missed a bunch of games, for him, right? And I think so much of the kind of historical context has swung on this idea that the Thunder are really good without Shea and that he, will brings them to another level, but maybe is not pulling them up into such a great stratosphere as Thunder fans might believe. But I will say, the team started 24-1. They finished 19-1, and they were not mediocre. They were just kind of a pretty good playoff team in terms of like their win record in between there. And in between there is when Shea missed 9 straight games right in the middle of the season. When Shea played, the Thunder had a 68 win pace. So they were pretty similar to those historic teams. And, the Warriors, the Bulls, a lot of people are now like acting as if the Thunder should be disappointed, I think, because of the 24-1 run that didn't materialize into, a 70 win season. But, let alone Jalen Williams or Isaiah Hartenstein, and you can map those over to, the Warriors or Bulls not losing Scottie Pippen for half the season or a Draymond Green, Michael Jordan, Steph Curry also missed much fewer. I think Michael Jordan played every game. I think Steph missed 3 games in his. So basically, I think the entire explanation for why the kind of eye-popping metrics on how much better the Thunder are as a basketball team not materializing into like a 68, 69, 70 plus win season is 100% injuries. That's it. From the top to the bottom, they have played as good as they possibly can when they're healthy. Of course,
100%.
there's a game here and there, mainly the Spurs games, that you can say they didn't win. They were not undefeated, but in terms of just on paper and their performance, if they were healthy, they would have a bunch more wins. They would have a handful
100%.
more wins, and they would be challenging those. I'm not saying they would win 74 or 75, but they would be up there.
Yeah, I don't think at all it is a stretch to imagine that if this team that is like the second most injured team in the NBA this season had a player who was all NBA last year, an all-star, all defensive team, not missed the majority of games this season, had Hartenstein, a starting center, best rebounder, and a playmaker on this team, not missed over 30 games. Alex Caruso, AJ Mitchell, you know, a six man of the year candidate and an all defensive player, not missed over 20 games this season. And then you add in Shea, Dort, Chet, Isaiah Joe, like all these injuries. It's not hard to imagine at all. You're going to win five, six, seven, eight more games had they not been so injured. And it's also not hard to imagine that if Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, or some other role players miss double digit games, or Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen miss double digit games, that those teams wouldn't have hit 70 wins. So I do believe that this is a team that is like a 70 win team talent type team. They were just incredibly injured this year. And so I do agree that looking at Shay's like pace and seeing that it's at 68 wins is pretty telling. And especially given the fact that he played the majority of those games with all these injured teammates. And I do think it's a big kind of bow on his MVP case. The fact that he still led this team to the best record in the NBA, despite this being a stacked Western Conference with all these injuries is very, very impressive.
Absolutely. The Thunder did have to work very hard. A lot of people were counting on them, I think, failing and floundering while the Spurs were pushing them from the second spot in the Western standings, but they never floundered. They never gave up their lead. They won. They were in pole position, start to finish, wire to wire for the whole season. They did it. They took care of business, Shea on down. And I've also, every week I'm trying not to be as annoyed by Twitter, but there's just another one of like, oh, you know, it took him this long to clinch the 1 seed is going around now. So I just, out of curiosity, the 96 Bulls, they clinched the number 1 overall seed with 5 games remaining. The Warriors, 2016, clinched it with 6 games remaining. So the Thunder did it with 2 games left. Come on, it's an accomplishment. Like, every Thunder accomplishment is somehow spun to be, not that impressive or somehow disappointing, and it's no, they're really good. They're really, really good, and all the numbers show it, and there's just, like, some take artistry that is trying to spin it as something other than it is, I think.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. When you look at those Warriors, I remember like the Spurs, just like the Thunder, were hot on their heels, and so they had to keep playing. Like you can't help who the other teams are. If anything, it's more impressive to still clinch a number 1 seed when you have another team that's a 60 win team and winning at the pace that these Spurs are winning at. Like the Thunder can't help what the Spurs are. You're going to end up with around 65 wins on the season. And so you're looking at like an all-time historic team, especially given all the injuries. What if the Spurs are a 63 win team? I mean, I think it's silly to have any takes about it taking this long. Look, I think that the 24-1 start just kind of messed up expectations for this team. They were coming off a championship and they looked unbeatable at that after that 24-1 start. I do think that, that middle stretch because the Thunder started off 24-1 and now they're 19-1 in their last 20 games. So they are 43-2 at the beginning and at the end of the season, which is just ridiculous, just all-time ridiculous. It's that middle stretch. Well, what caught up to them in that middle stretch? I think it was a combination of injuries and I think, kind of chasing I'm not saying that they were chasing, but they're obviously like kind of pushing during that 24-1 stretch. The expectations were there from the outside, but I think also internally, you can't help it. It's human nature. Like, man, we could really, kind of go for some history here. And then they lost a couple of games. They lost that NBA Cup game, and it's natural. You kind of like get off of that, high of winning the championship and starting 24-1. And so there's kind of a letdown and you're dealing with all these injuries and you kind of go through for their standards a slump, and by their standards kind of struggling in that middle stretch. I think it's perfectly understandable, but I do think that that start to the season is just what kind of like messed up expectations from the outside.
Yeah. All right. Well, and I would say the one really good example on the Shea side of things of this kind of moving perception, and it's all this kind of like, what do they call that? Man, I'm failing. Transitive property.
Oh, right,
We're
right, right.
like, if this A equals B, then B equals C. So if the Spurs beat the Thunder early in the season, then Victor Wembanyama is better than Shea, right? And then especially late going, if the Spurs get the 1 seed, then Vic is better than Shea. Saw that a lot. And when the tide I felt like started to turn for Shea is when he doubled up on Jokic late in the season and handled and outplayed Jokic, and the Thunder beat the Nuggets a couple times recently. I do feel like people were saying, okay, Shea can be better than Jokic, I guess, right?
Right,
I think
right.
that's when that happened. And then Jokic beats Wimby recently, and I feel like people have suddenly flipped it back to saying, well, maybe Jokic is the best again.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of, the playoffs is where, there are 7-game series and there's a clear better team and best player. And that is where Shea and the Thunder have won recently. And that's where they need to do it to, I guess, have that legitimacy that isn't built on Twitter takes. But I'll stop ranting now. Done. Breathe. So a couple questions. Number one, the seeding and lottery possibilities that remain to play out is basically who the Thunder could face in round 2. Of course, the play-in is up in the air, and who their first round opponent is unknowable until the play-in actually happens. But basically, we're looking at probably Denver in the 3 seed and probably the Lakers and Rockets in the 4-5. Definitely Wolves are now stuck in 6, I believe. But a lot of movement still could happen between 3 and 5. And then also back to the play-in area, the Sixers pick and the Clippers pick are both owed to the Thunder. And the Sixers pick is top 4 protected. The Clippers is outright. So if they were to get bounced from the play-in, either miss it to begin with or lose out, then that would obviously mostly be really good for the Thunder. Unless, of course, the Sixers pick by being in the lottery, jumped up in the top 4, and then they did. But anyway, so we're kind of looking at the top seed the Thunder might play, and then at the bottom, what pick they might get enhanced based on the way the season plays out. So that's the only guessing I want to do. Do you have a feel for where you think, who the Thunder will be facing in that first, second round as the playoff seeding set shakes out, sorry. And then do you think that we should get our hopes up for either of those picks getting into juicy territory?
Yeah, you're right. So the rooting interest the rest of the way for the Thunder, now that they have the number 1 seed clinched, is all about the draft picks from the Clippers and the 76ers. And then also side note, hoping that the Nuggets climb up or remain in the 3rd seed so that you have the Spurs and the Nuggets on the other side of the bracket. So you're hoping like the Lakers lose at least one more game the rest of the way. They're unfortunately going to be playing 3 teams that are playing for nothing, but maybe the Nuggets win out, beat the Thunder tomorrow night. I think the Thunder are going to assist them in that. And then hoping that the Spurs let the Nuggets beat them as well by resting players. We'll see what the Spurs do. As far as the picks go, unfortunately for Joel Embiid, got news today from Shams that he's going to have appendicitis surgery. Like hopefully he's completely okay as far as like that rupturing. I'm sure he'll be fine. Good news, like long term for him. But in the short term, he might miss a week or 2, which means he's gonna miss probably the rest of the regular season, and then probably the play-in tournament. And the rest of the regular season, they're playing the Rockets tonight. You gotta think with how well the Rockets are playing, and they're at home, and they still have something to play for, they probably win that game.
And that's
Maybe.
one note, we kinda need to root for the Rockets,
Right,
or at
yes.
least not root against them if it's too hard to root for them.
Right, yes, absolutely. So, Rockets probably win that tonight, but then the 76ers end with the Pacers and Bucks. So even without Joel Embiid, I'm sure that Maxey, Paul George, and VJ Edgecombe can win those 2 games against taking teams that are gonna hand those wins over. So they probably go 1 and 2. Then you look at the rest of that field, you got the Raptors, you got the Hornets, you've got the Magic all kind of fighting it out in the area. You got the Heat, but I think they'll finish 10th. I think that the 76ers ultimately end up in the play-in, and without Joel Embiid, I do believe it's gonna be tough for them to make it out of that field. Kinda project that I'm guessing the Magic and 76ers probably end up at 7 and 8, and the Magic maybe win that one, and then I think it'll be tough. That Hornets team, to me, looks legit. They might be the best team of all those play-in teams. I kinda have a feeling the 76ers might not make the playoffs without Joel Embiid. If Embiid were healthy, I would feel more confident. So, that may be kind of a best case scenario for the Thunder's pick, where it's either gonna be they squeak into the playoffs as, like, the 8 seed, and so you're guaranteed, like, the 15th pick, and you don't even have to work 15th or 16th pick, and you don't have to worry about whether it's, jumps up into the top 4 even with those minuscule chances, or it ends up as like, the 14th, 13th, or 14th pick, and there's a minuscule chance. And then the Clippers side of things, honestly, as far as who the Thunder are gonna play in the first round, I think it is like a 25% chance for every one of these teams. I think the Suns being the 7th seed and having a home game and two cracks at it at home, they probably make the playoffs. But will that be as the 7 or 8? I have no idea. The Clippers and Blazers are playing tomorrow night in Portland for the chance to be the number 8 seed. Whoever wins that is the number 8 seed. If Portland wins that game, and the Clippers were the number 9 seed, and they had to play the Warriors with Steph Curry, I might favor the Warriors in that one. So, if that happens, that Clippers pick could be like the 11 or 12 at that point. So, you're looking at possibly like the 12th and 13th, 15th picks, anything like that. And even if the Clippers sneak in, you're looking at a range of like 2 picks between like 11 and 16, it looks like to me, which is a very, very good result. I don't know who the Thunder are gonna play though in round 1. It could be the Suns, Blazers, Clippers, or Warriors. You could argue for any of them, and I think I would agree with you.
Yeah, and I misspoke earlier, so the Clippers and the Sixers cannot miss the play-in, but they can avoid the Clippers cannot avoid it, the Sixers could avoid it, but it's within the play-in zone that it's better if they finish in the 9-10 slots because they lose 1 game and they're out and they're in the lottery. Whereas if they're in the 7-8, then they have 2 cracks at it. So it's just a clear, like, double your chances, right, that the pick will, uh, turn out to be a winner. So, what do you think about, the Nuggets? Do you think they'll end up in the 3rd? My kinda general thing is when you're this close into the season, by far and away, the most likely thing is just the standings as they are. So I feel pretty good about the Nuggets staying in number 3, and I think it would be pretty tricky. There's a path, but I think it'd be pretty tricky and maybe risky even for them, depending on how the Rockets play, and potentially like dropping enough to get into that side of the bracket, but also maybe losing home court advantage to the
Right,
Rockets in the process. So
right.
who do you think? Do you think it's where it is, or are you concerned at all the Nuggets make their way back to the Thunder side of the bracket?
I do think that the Nuggets will finish 3rd. I'm concerned about the Lakers part of things. Even though the Lakers are without Luka and Austin Reeves, like I said earlier, they're playing the Warriors, Suns, and Jazz. Well, we know the Jazz is a win. They're giving everybody a win. You and me and the rest of the Daily Thunder crew could suit up, and the Jazz would find a way to give us a win to ensure they get a top pick. The Suns. Maybe they play their guys against the Lakers because it's the second last game of the season and they're just kinda getting healthy, and maybe they wanna get a win, before the end of the season, but I don't know. I have a hard time believing they're gonna play their guys. They don't have anything to play for, and the Warriors, we already know that Steph Curry isn't playing tonight. Maybe they come up with a win at home with Pods and Draymond Green. I don't know, it's tough. So you kinda have to depend on the Nuggets beating the Thunder. Like I said earlier, I think OKC will help them with that, even though, like, the Thunder's, like, B and C teams will put up a fight just because 'cause they're out there and that's just the way they play. To me, it all comes down to whether or not the Spurs give the Nuggets a win the last game of the season. Like, will Wemby and Castle play? And even if Wemby and Castle don't play, they still got a bunch of guys. Will they play De'Aaron Fox and Keldon Johnson and Dylan Harper and Devin Vassell and Champagnie? How many of those guys play?
And do they want the Nuggets to move
Exactly. Like,
across the street as well?
right. What is their motivation? Do they wanna win to get them on the same side of the bracket as the Thunder, or are they like, "Hey, it's not worth the risk of playing our guys and risking an injury in a meaningless game." To me, it kinda all comes down to that, unless somehow the Warriors or Suns can beat the, Lakers. So, yeah, I think it's those 2 factors.
Okay, well, that's enough theory and speculation. It'll turn out completely opposite of everything we guessed.
Right.
I'm counting on JJ Redick just keeping things as miserable as possible in LA.
Right.
He clearly is not optimistic about the players not named Austin Reeves and LeBron James and Luka Doncic at all. So
Right.
I'm hoping that, he just keeps those vibes. No plucky little wins, encouraging. They want to be miserable. He wants them miserable. He wants them to feel like they suck and like they need Luka back on some miracle medical interventions to happen for them to have a chance. So I'm hoping they're buying what he sells.
Right.
And then we'll see. I'd love, the Thunder, like you said, Thunder might help out the Nuggets with some convenient rest patterns coming
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
But I would love to see if the Spurs had the nerve to actually duck the Nuggets just head to head like that, you know?
Agreed. Yeah.
That would be pretty rich, I think, the way they've kind of framed their season and their appetite to beat anyone and everyone and not be afraid of anything. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how if they get tempted by an easier second round opponent. I wouldn't blame them, but it would be of note. Last question, and this is the question that will determine whether the Thunder. You listed a bunch of those teams that have performed at this level, won this many games at this level. We're talking Warriors, the old Celtics, the old Lakers, the 90s Bulls, right? If they graduate into that very top echelon of teams that just dominated, they need a title. They need the title that matches the regular season dominance. So, what do you think? If yes or no, you got to answer yes or no. You can give an explanation you want, but did the Thunder repeat?
I do believe the Thunder repeat. I believe ultimately, if the Nuggets end up in the 3 spot and the Thunder's path is play-in team, probably the Rockets, and then only having to deal with one of the Spurs Nuggets, and I believe in a head-to-head matchup, I like the Thunder over the Nuggets, and I know that if the Spurs make it to the Western Conference Finals, that means that they've kind of proven some playoff mettle despite their inexperience, but I still feel like in a series of that magnitude, I'm gonna go with the championship experience of the Thunder, and I still believe despite the regular season, 3-1 record. I know it's 4-1, but the Thunder didn't play any of their guys that last game. I still think the Thunder are the better team. So I got them coming out of the West, and then probably the Celtics out of the East are the team that I trust the most. And I just feel like Thunder versus either the Nuggets or Spurs is the true NBA Finals. Now, we thought that last year, felt like the semifinals were the real NBA Finals, but then the Pacers obviously were for real. But I still have a hard time believing the Celtics, especially given their center and size issues and relative lack of depth compared to the Thunder. And the Thunder are going to have the best player on the floor. All due respect to Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum. And Tatum is playing great, but he's still not 100%. I think the Thunder beat the Celtics in the finals.
Oh, so the Peyton Pritchard disrespect though is intended.
I will tell you what, if the Thunder play the Celtics in the finals, there are gonna be some big moments in some games where it feels like Peyton Pritchard is like TJ McConnell meets Steph Curry, and it's gonna feel unbelievable, like, for Thunder fans, and he's gonna
Steph
go on
Steph
that.
McConnell, we're calling it
Yeah,
now.
Steph
He's
McConnell. He's
Steph
gonna, like,
McConnell.
go on that, like, Thunder Mount Rushmore of, like, Thunder killers. It's gonna feel that way if the Thunder get into a final series with the Celtics, guaranteed. Well, I don't wanna guarantee it because I don't wanna put that out in the world, but I can see it.
I personally enjoy some of my favorite just matchups to watch is Peyton Pritchard with the Thunder perimeter guards. Just
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's I call it the slap fight, the boxing match, whatever, just a battle to get those inches of space, and with just equally matched, equally weird, somewhat one-dimensional, kind of specialist type players
Yes.
on both sides of the ball that are just a battle. It hurts when he when he gets it off. He's a good player, he's
Yeah,
doing it. But
yeah.
I'm with you. I think it would be on really Jason Tatum or Cade Cunningham to, really break out and move the needle on their injury recoveries and for their teams to really lift their current rosters to where the Thunder are with Shai, I think. I don't consider that likely, and I definitely don't consider them likely to be better than Shai in that matchup. And then yeah, I'm ready for all the West foes. Don't necessarily want the hardest path, but am looking forward to anyone that comes across the Thunder side of the bracket whenever, and just getting to see them, I feel like, stamp some more dominance. I'd love to have a 4-1 postseason record against the Spurs to counter the 4-1 regular season record that will pale in comparison. All right. Well, thank you, Brandon. Good thoughts. Great coverage all season. We'll
Thank you.
figure out how we cover the rest of the games besides having our eyes wander to everyone else playing and the seating and stuff. But it should be a fun little kind of. It's nice because there's just the Thunder have taken care of their destiny. There's very little influence that they can do that will really affect them. They've won enough games. They've done what they need to do, and we're kind of already in this wait and see approach. It's just very fun when you start ramping up for the playoffs. So I'm excited. I'm sure you are, and I hope our listeners and readers and fans of Daily Thunder will stay tuned to Brandon on Twitter at Brandon Rabar, Daily Thunder on Twitter at Daily Thunder, of course, dailythunder.com. This podcast wherever you get it. And stay tuned for more fun ahead. Thank you so much, Brandon.
Yeah, thank you. Great show and great job all season, Craig.
Awesome. You too.